The Arkham series was, all told, a massive success, critically and financially. Suicide Squad may not have set the world on fire, but there's no denying that the game starring the Caped Crusader not only introduced a lot of people to the world of Batman, but brought him to the spotlight as far as video games go. It all started in 2009 with the release of Arkham Asylum, a surprise smash hit from then relatively unknown developers, Rocksteady. Though it's easy to see it as antiquated now, for its time, Arkham Asylum offered an unparalleled sense of immersion into everything Batman, and served as a huge love letter to everything the character was. With bio pages on characters that didn't even appear in the game, references to countless characters throughout the DC universe, and a story penned by Paul Dini, co-creator of Harley Quinn and Batman the Animated Series. This was on top of having an all-star cast featuring the late Kevin Conroy, Arlene Sorkin, and Mark Hamill, reprising their respective roles of Batman, Harley Quinn, and the Joker from the DCAU. With a combat system that was, for its time, revolutionary and became the standard for action games moving forward, as I'm sure you've gathered from me and everyone else who's ever played it, was a massive success on every front. But you'll notice I said the game came out in 2009. For those of you not keeping track at home, that was a while ago now. We're 2 console generations removed from the original release. In the interim, we've gotten a re-release on Nintendo Switch, and the return to Arkham remasters. While the Nintendo Switch release is mostly unchanged from the original, Return to Arkham saw a significant visual overhaul to both Asylum and City. And in general, okay, I do like the look of the rain in Asylum when exploring the island. That looks legitimately cool. But everything else feels like a downgrade, which is to say nothing of the bugs present that I did not experience in either the 360, PS3, or PC versions prior. So that's the end of it, right? The games are backwards compatible on the Xbox Series X and PS5, so while it's a visually inferior version, at least we have the games, right? Well, that's where it gets complicated. Currently, unconfirmed industry rumors are speculating on an Arkham Asylum remake, and I have to wonder if it's something that's really, truly needed. To be honest, I don't think so. While I would appreciate a more visually faithful way to play the game on modern systems, to be honest, I still think Arkham Asylum not only holds up incredibly well, but was a game that succeeded because of its constraints, not in spite of them. Combat and stealth may not be as refined or in-depth as later entries, but to me that only works to the game's advantage and the atmosphere and tone it was going for. You're trapped in this madhouse full of people who want you dead. There's no way out until you deal with every single one of them. Often in later entries with outdoor stealth sections, you can just jump off the roof, glide a distance away, and try again. An option that isn't available to you in Asylum. The limited options and ways you had to deal with things made you think more strategically. More like Batman, and that's something that I'm not sure could be recaptured in a remake with all the quality of life improvements later entries made. Asylum to me is the epitome of less is more, which isn't to say the other games are bad by any means, just that Asylum's limitations gave it a special, unique identity the other games simply don't have. There's also a more complicated matter of the passings of Kevin Conroy and Arlene Sorkin. This isn't me saying that absolutely no one else can ever be these characters. There have been plenty of amazing actors to step into the roles over the years, but in this particular case it would feel especially odd. At least to me. Roger Craig Smith has always been a solid choice for the role. I have maintained that since Arkham Origins. But also, if Arkham Shadow is anything to go by, I would definitely prefer they go in the direction of telling new stories within that universe with them than retreading stories already told. It's also just the principle of the thing, you know? It'd be like remaking The Dark Knight but recasting Heath Ledger, there are some things you just shouldn't touch. That's not to say there are no advantages to a remake being made. One advantage later entries have over Asylum is a greater variety of post-game content, and there's a lot of potential that could be done there with a lot of content that was left on the cutting room floor in the original release. But I don't know if the game would significantly benefit from any of it. The feel and flow of Arkham Asylum is absolutely iconic, and the cut content like the chapel and the lighthouse could make it feel like an entirely different game, which, depending on who you ask for a remake, could either be really good and interesting, or make it worse than the original. A complete one-to-one remake is pointless, but the other extreme is changing so much that it's an entirely different game, unrecognizable from the original, which also isn't ideal. And narratively, it could also be made more consistent with later entries. Arkham Asylum was the first game in the series before the lore was fully established. It was made as a sort of general love letter to Batman, but pretty much as soon as the sequel, substantial changes were made, specifically around Hugo Strange, among other things, and a remake would be a good way to tie everything up in a nice bow. I've been wrong about my fears in games being remade or remastered before, that's no secret, but this is once again one I have to say I really don't know. I not only think the game really doesn't need it, I think the game would be significantly worse off for it. A lot of the people who made Arkham Asylum so amazing don't even work at Rocksteady anymore. Some of them aren't even alive anymore. And that's not to say the people who work there now aren't extraordinarily talented, but Arkham Asylum was a product of a very specific team and a very specific vision at a very specific time. Is that lightning in a bottle that can truly be recaptured? I don't think so. I'm not opposed to the idea of a remake, but I just don't think it necessarily needs it. I've long since abandoned the idea that games or any art need to justify their existence, and have embraced that games, or movies, or shows, or comics, or anything can exist simply because the person or people behind them wanted it to exist, with the obvious exceptions of things that are illegal or exploitative or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think it's a good idea and that I don't have reservations about how it will turn out. And that's fine. Not everything has to try to capture my interest or be made for me, but after the sheer ire from Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it does make one wonder what's next to the series, especially with the success of Arkham Shadow, showing that interest in the series is alive and well.